Well, hey, welcome. We're so glad that you have joined us today. Welcome to Trinity Church. Our Torch kids can head out with our Torch teachers this morning. We are so glad you're here. If you're new here, if this is your first week, we want to say a special welcome. We would love to meet you. We would love to tell you more how to get connected to the community of Trinity Church. We have a table in the back. We will have a welcome team person there afterwards. They would love to tell you how you can get more connected here at our church. Right now, we are preaching through the Psalms, and the Psalms are songs or prayers or poems. And one of our themes that we're kind of pushing on to you and hoping that you embrace is that as we look at each Psalm each week on Sunday morning, that you would not just learn knowledge. You would not just learn something. That you would learn something, but that learning would move you to pray, because these are prayers. Prayer. To commune with God, to fellowship with Him. All the different Psalms, they do different things to us, and part of their intent is to form and shape our prayer life, how we pray, how we communicate with God. And this morning, the Psalm that we have before us is a very interesting Psalm. It's the only Psalm written by Moses. Moses wrote this Psalm. So a very, very fascinating, context that Moses wrote a Psalm that the people of God sang and then put into this book. And I will just get right out there to it. The theme of this psalm is at the end goal of this psalm. Moses is talking about work, your job, like what you do during the week, how you spend your time, your efforts to either make an income or produce something or create something or to mentor kids or to raise kids or whatever it is, work. And so let's read this psalm. And our theme this morning, we're going to talk about the meaninglessness of work, how to have purpose in work. And what a huge theme. I mean, like we come to church, every week, and you spend most of your week working. And oftentimes you can wonder, what does the Bible have to say about the job that I do or the work that I do with my life? And this one has some fascinating things to say. So let's read it and we'll get into it. And just a little confession. This week I had a very vivid nightmare that I was about to preach Psalm 90. When I turned there, I couldn't find Psalm 90. And in the nightmare, I spent 10 minutes and it wasn't in my Bible. So when I just opened, I was like, okay, it's there, But I guess that's the type of pastor nightmare. All right, Psalm 90, here we go. Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever you had formed the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You return man to dust and say, return, O children of man. For 1,000 years in your sight are but as yesterday when it is past, or as a watch in the night. You sweep them away as with a flood. You are like a dream, like grass that is renewed in the morning. In the morning it flourishes and is renewed. In the evening it fades and withers. For we are brought to an end by your anger. By your wrath we are dismayed. You have set our iniquities before you, our secret sins in the light of your presence. For all our days pass away under your wrath. We bring our years to an end like a sigh. The years of our life are 70, or even by reason of strength, 80. Yet their span is but toil and trouble. They are soon gone, and we fly away. Who considers the power of your anger and your wrath according to the fear of you? So teach us to number our days, that we may get a heart of wisdom. Return, O Lord, how long? Have pity on your servants. Satisfy us in the morning with your steadfast love, that we may rejoice and be glad all our days. Make us glad for as many days as you have afflicted us, and for as many years as we have seen evil. Let your work be shown to your servants, and your glorious power to their children. Let the favor of the Lord our God be upon us, and establish the work of our hands upon us. Yes, establish the work of our hands. This is the word of the Lord. Now I would be careful to make Moses your worship leader. You know, there was some doom and gloom in there. Imagine singing that every Sunday. A lot of darkness, a lot of things going on. But once again, I want to start with the ending, where he says twice to the Lord, establish the work of our hands. Yes, establish the work of our hands. Here's Moses crying out, Lord, make our work meaningful. Let it have purpose. Do something with it. Establish it. Let it be for something. Now he ends with that, but how does he get there? He gets there with some really big, lofty ideas. And so the big thesis here is to find purpose and meaning in your work, what you need to look to is one, the everlasting nature of God. Number two, the frailty of humanity, embracing our frailty, and then being satisfied with God's steadfast love. So your day-to-day job, what I'm gonna submit to you, your day-to-day work that is toilsome, that is hard, that requires grit, it involves looking up and seeing that God is from everlasting to everlasting. You are frail, and God's love is better than your job. It's better than any work you could ever do. So before we get into that outline, though, I actually have a really big intro for you. One thing I like to think about when you look at the Bible's take on work is Star Wars. Okay, Star Wars. The first Star Wars that came out, which is, if you're not familiar, it's the fourth episode, or the fourth, part of the story, but it's the first one that came out. It's Luke Skywalker, and he's got two jobs to do. He has two jobs to do. One, he has an external job, destroy the Death Star. Okay? So in your work, in your job, you've got external jobs to do. You got goals, you've got, something to sell or something to build. You got some external thing to do, a Death Star, right? It's like the big object you got to do, build a company, whatever it may be. But then he has a second job to do. His second job to do is not to succumb to the dark side, right? It's internal. There's an internal job and an external job. In the Bible, most of what the Bible has to say when it talks about your work is paying attention to the internal, the dark side, because he blows up the Death Star, but then you find out there's like 3 or 4 more Death Stars. There's always more goals, more things, it's the next day that comes along, but you only have one heart. You only have one heart. And actually, sin can get involved. Sin in the dark side, as we see in the Bible, can get involved to your relationship with work. And it can corrupt work, and it can mess work up. I mean, even when Adam and Eve fell in the garden, what all of a sudden is God talking about? He's talking about how work is going to be different than it was before sin came around. Sin is going to corrupt and put thorns in work. And so there's the three G's of work in the Bible, the 3 G's. Number one, the important thing to understand, work is not God. Work is not God. But work can become God for many people. Work can become that place, that thing that you go to feel purpose in life, to feel meaningful, to get a sense of like affirmation and approval, Like my grandparents, if you were to say the phrase to my grandparents or any generation before them, if you were to say to them, my job just really doesn't fulfill me, they would be like, say what? Your job doesn't fulfill, what does that even mean? I mean, they or any generation before them, they're like after them, like the baby boomers, they're the first people to come around and be like, I want a job that fulfills me, that fills me up, that fills my cup. Where do we get that idea from? What is that? It's turning, whereas when you remove God from culture, work becomes something that you worship, that you look to fill your cup. My grandma would be like, work is intended to put food on the table, okay? Fulfill you. You're not going to feel good from work. They understood work is hard. Work requires toil. Work is not God. You make work your God, you're going to be one of those people that bounce from job to job to job, or always be discontent with your job, or become prideful and arrogant over others in your job. Now, the second G in work is that work is also not godless. It's not godless. Work, the command to work was the first command that God gave to man. Be fruitful and multiply and have dominion over the earth. It's all about having dominion and taking the raw materials of the earth and doing things with them to create culture, to create civilization, to produce, to be like God and create. Okay? So work is not godless. The church can give you this big misconception that, you come to church and you do holy things, with church and the people of God and the Bible and prayer, which are all very important. Very important. But then when you go to work, that's like just godless. It's kind of like, what's the point of that? Maybe that exists just to give money to the church, right? No. The work you do, and I'll get into this in a minute, whatever job you do to help be a contributing member of society, it can be God-honoring. It can give glory to God. It's not godless. And then the fourth G that's important to understand is that work requires grit. Work requires grit. There is no gritless job. If your goal in life is to sell Mai Tais on the beach and have some job where it's just easy and it's just fulfills you and it's just this thing that is never hard, you're missing the whole definition of the word work. Post-sin, God promises work is going to be filled with thorns. And so if you have some expectation that one day you're going to have some job that does not require grit, you're living in a dream world. I mean, look at little kids. As soon as you start to teach them and train them about chores, chore, I gotta take my dish to the sink. It's kind of hey, that ain't that hard, man. You're gonna be doing a lot more of that. Later in life, it requires grit. It's difficult. It requires selflessness. So just the 3 G's, those are things we've talked about before. Second category I want to throw at you in this introduction, just to lay some groundwork, are 2 tiers of work. 2 tiers of work. You have first tier work, and this is the most important work any human does. First tier work is kingdom building. Second tier work is culture building. There's kingdom building and there's culture building. Both crucial, both important, but we do believe the Bible draws this distinction between the two. First tier work, the most important work, kingdom building. This is something a work that all Christians are called to do. You're all called to this. 1, evangelism. Evangelism is first tier work. It's seeing people go from not believing in Jesus to believing in Jesus and all that is involved in that. Persuading people about the gospel, you being open and honest, what you believe, professing out loud to the people in your life. I believe in Jesus. I believe he rose from the dead. I believe he is God. Do the people in your life know that? That's a work. That's a work that all Christians are called to. Inviting people into the family of God. Demonstrating holy living and service out in the world. That's a work all Christians are called to. Another first tier work is prayer. Like praying and talking to God. That's work. That's a job we're all called to do. I had some friends who built a house in Katy. They had a lot of money, so they had an outdoor basketball court, an indoor basketball court, a pool, all these different things going on. They showed me this one room in the house. It was a closet. When they opened the door, it was a 4 by 5 foot closet, no windows, padded floor, a little chair, and a wall covered with pictures of missionaries and people that they were praying for. It was a prayer closet. And they were like, Mark, this is our favorite room in the house, And so they had times where they would go in there and shut the door to light a candle or turn on a light and pray. When they went in that room and they prayed, that's work. That's kingdom work. When you pray to God, that is kingdom work. First tier work. Giving financially to the causes of Christ. Giving to church, parachurch organizations. That's work, kingdom work. Discipleship is work. The people back there teaching the kids the gospel this morning, that is work. Top tier, first tier work. Bible study is first tier work. You wrestling to learn the Bible, to know the Bible, it's work. It requires grit, toil. You have to get after it and be disciplined and go to it daily. That's work. So first tier work. Second tier work is culture building. This is also very important. This involves the volunteer jobs that you have. This involves the jobs that you get paid for, that many of you do throughout the week, your occupation. This is all different kinds of work that aid civilization and help human flourishing, creating cities and states that have economies that can grow and support people. This is one. Parenting is second-tier work. All of these jobs are things that anyone can do. Even non-Christians can do these jobs, and they are important. You have parenting, teaching, nursing, doctors, building, buying, selling material goods, architecture, financing, cleaning, artistry, storytelling, chefs, farmers, distributors, jobs that build cities, states, national governments, anything that helps build civilization. Then you have within this category the protection of human flourishing, policemen, firemen, other government officials, the military, lawyers. Those are important jobs too because they help protect human flourishing. Now, the reason I bring up both of these tiers is it's very important as we get to our verse, establish the work of our hands. Here's three mistakes especially pastors make and Christians can make when talking about these two tiers. Number one, when the second tier is downplayed. When it's kind of like the only work to do is the Christian first tier work and the job that you go to every day where you make a living and you do things is not really that important. No, we will not say that. They are very important. If we don't have bridges and we don't have doctors and we don't have airplanes and we don't have like cars and things to take, if we don't have homes and doors that work, we're not gonna have a civilization to spread the gospel in, okay? Like we need all of those things to happen, right? And God made us to do work. He made us to work and to create. So one, you can't downplay it to where it doesn't matter. But number two, another mistake is to say that second tier is as important as first tier. No, it's not. It's not. It's not your most important work. If I have a job of persuading someone to buy a car or persuading someone to believe in Jesus for salvation, is one of those two more important than the other? Yes, it is. I'm not saying selling a car, if that's your living, is not, you do it. I hope you sell a ton of cars and make a ton of money. That's good. That's great. But let's not forget what is more important. First tier is more important than second tier. Okay, they're both work, but one is not as important as the other. Number three, another one is to overly, this happened a lot like in the 2000s, to overly glorify the radical jobs. There's like these certain jobs out there that are radical, and those are the really ones that are like super important, and the super holy people do those radical jobs. The things that just look amazing out there, Let's not forget, Jesus worked for 30 years doing a blue-collar job as a carpenter. Was he less holy during that time than when he did his 3-year ministry? No. He was still fully God. He was still just as holy. Like if God calls you to a silent and quiet work where you create something good in life, that can be holy. You can be holy in that. God is not less pleased with you because it's less radical, okay? Let's get that out of here. So, big intro, I know, big intro. So, it all comes to, why is Moses crying out, establish the work of our hands? That prayer is a prayer saying, tier one, kingdom building. Tier two, culture building. God, establish the work of our hands. Take all the work, the toil, the energy that we're putting in to week, trying to just make it and make a living. Establish the work of our hands. Build your kingdom. Build it. Use us. Let our work be meaningful and purposeful. That is his prayer. So how do we get there? Once again, understanding God is everlasting. Here's our first point. Now, the first point is to get to that point. God, a couple different truths that he shoots out at us right from the beginning. One, God is man's eternal dwelling place. God is man's eternal dwelling place. God is present with every generation. He sees it all. He's older than every mountain. He's older than the earth. He's older than the sun, the galaxies. He's before everything. The phrase everlasting to everlasting, you are God, is speaking to the truth of God's transcendence and his ever-presence, that he existed before anything was created. He will always exist after maybe the earth falls away and he creates the new heavens and the new earth. He will always exist. He's always existed. He even is at the point of every person that is living when it says that he sees people's bodies turn to dust. What's that getting at? He sees the death of every person. Everyone who's ever lived, in every place, in every time. He's been there. He's seen every man's body, man and woman's body, turn into dust. He's much bigger than us. He's much grander than us. He is everlasting to everlasting. He is also outside of time. We live on a timeline. Like we have a start and a finish. And even here he references, hey, maybe 70 years, even by reason of strength, 80 years. The limit that the Bible gives humans to live post-fall, the max is 120 years. No one's going to live past that. God is outside of that timeline. So little illustrations he gives. Like a watch in the night, to God, that's like 1,000 years. Like if you were to stay up all night, just like in your living room, keeping watch. Like it would start and it would finish and it'd be the morning. And this passage is saying to God, that one night to him is like 1,000 years. It's poetry. It's like, that's nothing to him. He's seen many thousands of years come and go. He even says it's like a piece of debris floating away in a flood. Like you've ever been in a river and you see a little stick float by? It's like 1,000 years. This is nothing to God. He's above and beyond time. So, what does this have to do with finding meaning in work? Like when you get up in the morning and you go to your job and you either, get on a phone or sit at a desk or sit in your chair or whatever it is that you do, start talking with people, how is this going to help you in your everyday work, in your everyday job? Well, here's a question. Have you ever had a day? Have you ever had a week? Have you ever had a year? Have you ever had a decade where a day goes by and you're like, what did I just do? Like, did I do anything worthy? Have you had a week that goes by and you're like, what happened this week? Like someone asked me this morning, how was your week? I don't know. So many things, I don't even remember. It's like, how did the week go? You tell me. It's hard to remember all the things that go on. A month, a year. Have you ever had a decade that you look back on and you're like, what do I have to show for that? Like, is there any real purpose to that decade or that year? Did something good come from that? If you've ever wrestled with that, this psalm is for you because this passage is saying, hey guys, be encouraged. God is from everlasting to everlasting. And when Moses comes to him and says, establish the work of our hands, as a chosen one of the Lord, his prayer gets answered. His prayer gets answered. If anybody had an opportunity for discouragement in their job and in their work, it was Moses. Okay, let's think about Moses for a minute. Moses gets called into the minute. He's a shepherd in the desert. He murders a guy in Egypt, escapes. He's just a random nobody shepherd in the desert. He's 80 years old, like 80. And that's when God is like, now your ministry's gonna start, okay? Your ministry starts when you're 80. Like, I don't think anyone here is 80 yet. It'd be like, we haven't even gotten started. So he calls him into the ministry to go and rescue Israel from Egypt and slavery. They've been slaves for 400 years. And I don't need to go through the whole story of Moses because it's long. We'll get into it another time. But he is a part of rescuing a people from slavery, takes them into the desert, and they wander around a desert for 40 years. 40 years. They wander around the desert. They see some amazing things, amazing miracles. But Moses gets to the end of his life before they get into the promised land. The whole goal of being rescued out of Egypt and wandering around the wilderness is that they're headed toward a goal to accomplish something. And what is it? Get to the promised land. But notice what happens in Numbers 20:12. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not believe in me to uphold me as holy in the eyes of the people in Israel, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land that I have given them. This doesn't mean that Moses wasn't a believer. It means he disobeyed in this one particular instance in the wilderness, and the consequence of disobeying God was you do not get to go into the promised land. Moses has worked and given toil and blood and sweat and tears from 80 for 40 years. The dude is old as dirt. He's reached the max, and God is like, you're not going into the promised land. Now, we believe he's in heaven, which, in the end, that's the ultimate promised land. But Moses had some serious opportunity for discouragement. That goal, that thing that he's been working toward his whole life, he doesn't get to see it. He doesn't get to see it. So from our vantage point, this is very important. When he prays, establish the work of our hands, God answers that prayer for Moses. But Moses doesn't get to see it. Moses doesn't see it, but God answers his prayer. Moses, we look back at Moses, that dude accomplished a ton. God used that instrumental step to save the cosmos, to save the world, to bring his people eventually to the promised land and give us Jesus. Well, God used Moses to do this amazing thing. Here's a principle. Here's an important principle. Because God is everlasting to everlasting, your work, if you're his child, if you are a believer, I think there is a promise there that your work will be used in grand and marvelous ways. And you probably will not see it happen in your lifetime. That's part of being a person of faith. Here's an example. In the 1920s, Stalin was in power in Russia. Stalin wanted to eradicate the Christian church from the country. He demolished over 1,200 beautiful church buildings. He put Christians in, he executed Christians. He put Christians in labor camps. He confiscated all the Bibles that they could. They took a whole bunch of Bibles and they put them in warehouses. One city in particular was a city called Stavropol. Stavropol is still a city to this day. Fast forward from 1920 to 1920s to the 1990s, a lot of missionaries started going from America and other places to Russia to take the gospel there because there are some inroads in at that point. But when they get there, you weren't allowed to bring Bibles. They wouldn't let you bring a Bible into the country. So here you have these missionaries in the country with no Bibles, right? And they didn't have phones back then that had the Bibles on them. It was a lot harder to, get that stuff in there. In Stavropol, some Cru missionaries discovered there was a warehouse full of Bibles. So they prayed, and they approached one of the guards in the town and just asked on faith, hey, can we get access to the books in that warehouse? And that particular guard that day was like, sure, go ahead. So they hire a couple workers from in town, a couple men. They rent a moving truck. They go to this warehouse, and they're unloading all these Bibles, and it's taken all day, and they're putting them in these trucks, in this truck, right? One of the Russian workers, named Nicholas, is an atheist. He's just there to make a buck. As they're moving the Bibles, he takes one of the Bibles, and he feels this impression to just take this one particular Bible and open it. When he opens this particular Bible, inside the inside cover is his grandmother's name. His grandmother had been executed in the 1920s for being a Christian, an outspoken believer. Just seeing her name, he trembles, he falls on his knees, And he opens it and he starts reading. I don't know what he read, but he starts reading it. And he starts weeping. Make a long story short, he becomes a believer. He joins the work of these missionaries. I share that story because I think there's a really important vantage point. The grandmother. If she had any desire, God established the work of our hands. She did not see that she didn't get to see the full extent that God is everlasting to everlasting. The work that you do, you likely will not see the full extent of the impact that you are having. That is why we walk by faith. That's what it means to walk by faith. We bring to God our work daily. Here's what I'm doing. I'm trying. I'm working. I'm making an effort. And I give it to you. And I trust you with it, that you are everlasting to everlasting. And you have plans that I cannot see. Second point, embracing your frailty. And I'll move through this quickly. A couple key truths you see in this. One, we're frail. In our sin, before God's wrath, he sees all of our sins. He sees our secret sins. All of our days are before his eyes. When they end, we sigh. When we get to 70, 80 years, good job, way to go. But then we fly away. Like the song, I'll fly away. We're just gone. The brevity of life, the reason we die is because of sin. He talks about God is just. He's a God of wrath. We die because we sin. We have sin in us. And so it's God's just punishment for sin. We don't get to live forever in this body. Now, the promise of eternal life is Jesus will resurrect our body if our souls are united to him by faith, but this physical body is going to die. Why is this important for your work? Why is this important in finding purpose in work? This is a motivation adjustment. Motivation adjustment. To see that we are frail. To see that our life is brief. To see that our life is, as James says, a mist. Here one day, gone the next. Why? Because there is the thing in our hearts, the dark side in our hearts, that we want to take work and attach it to our souls as this source of meaning and purpose that is only meant for God Almighty, the love that he gives us. If you look at the Tower of Babel story, remember the Tower of Babel? They're going to build this tower. It shows you their motivation. There's a brief line that says they were doing that ridiculous thing to make what? To make a name for themselves. To make a name for themselves. And God was not pleased with that, and he came and he crushed it. Boom. No. You're not going to do that. How many of our jobs exist as this attempt to make a name for ourselves? That it's about us. It's selfishly about our own name, our own reputation, our own glory. There's a very interesting term. It's called workaholic. Think about that. We have a term, workaholic. Like work can be like alcohol. We know this. We have a term in our vernacular. People can be addicted to work. Think about one of the 10 Commandments, the Sabbath. It's like with murder. There's murder, adultery, and take a break from work. Why is that in there with those other big, massive things? Because work can become your God. It can become what you worship. It can be that thing that you look to. 2 ways you know that work has become your God. 1, you can't stop and say no to it, and it's eating away at the more important things of life, like family and church and community. Another way you know work has become your God is you're overly discouraged about it. You're overly discouraged about it. It beats you down. You don't want to go. You can't delight in just doing the little things and be thankful that you have a job at all, that you have any work to do at all, that you're even alive. Work can become our God. John Chrysostom was one of the early church fathers. Listen to this potent quote. If you knew how quickly people would forget you after your death, you would not seek in your life to please anyone but God. If you knew, Psalm 90, how quickly you will be forgotten when you die, in this life you would not seek to please anyone except for God. Josh Allen was named the MVP, NFL MVP's quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. In his acceptance speech of the MVP award, most valuable player, he's thanking the whole establishment of the Buffalo Bills. He's like, this isn't just me. Like, I'm a part of a team. I have an offensive line. He didn't say, this is essentially what he said. He has receivers, defense. It's a whole thing. And then he even got into the office and starts mentioning office workers. And he says a guy's name. He says, even Slick Rick in the mailroom. He mentions Slick Rick. Well, the news were like, who is Slick Rick? They find Slick Rick. They interview Slick Rick at the field. So find this interview. It's powerful. Slick Rick is just losing it. Like, he's just losing it. Telling this story about how he's just sitting in his chair watching the thing. He knows Josh, and he's proud to even just know him, right? And he's watching. He's excited for him. And Josh Allen, the quarterback, mentions his name. And he is just overwhelmed with emotion. He's like, yells out for his son, oh, Josh said my name. He's like, and he's just crying in his house. Like, he said my name. And he says in the interview like 10 times, he said my name. He said my name. Like, I'm important to him. I matter to him. When I watched that video, I couldn't help but think about what the Bible doesn't say a lot about work. One of the things it says in both Colossians and Ephesians is that same theme. We do our work because Jesus, the true and better quarterback of all of existence, the MVP, he sees you doing your job. And the call is that you would work not for your annoying boss. It's like implies your boss will probably be annoying. Like, you don't work for that guy or that girl. Your ultimate boss that you work for day to day is Jesus. And he says your name. Like, guys, have you lost that sense that you're working for Jesus? You're doing your job, your work with excellence and with zeal to show off the glory of Jesus because you're working for him. Like, that's a witness. Like, do the people at your work see your attitude and see the way that you work and think, there's something different about this guy. There's something different about this girl. Moms, what you do at home, that is work. When your kids see you, it's there. Do they say, they're working for the Lord? Or is it just filled with complaint and griping and moaning? And that has to do with men too, in the house. How we work around the house is either an example to the kids that we work for Jesus, or, I remember a friend once at our church, she said, they moved away, so I can tell it. She said her kid one time asked her, Mom, why did you have kids? And she's like, what do you mean? She's like, why? Like, it seems like you don't like us. She's a little kid, but yeah. Last point, I'll close with this, that we're satisfied with his love. There's some rich verbiage here in verse 14 and 15. Let us rejoice in the Lord. Like, let us rejoice in the Lord every morning, that we would be that we satisfy us in the morning with your steadfast love, that we would be rejoice and be glad all our days. There's a little key there. To be a joyful person all our days is not to look to our work to satisfy us, to fulfill us, but the love of God. The love of God. I'll close with this story. There's a movie in the late 90s. It's called The Three Seasons. And I don't recommend this story. It's just a scene from a movie, people. It's not real. There's a character called, it happens in Korea, South Korea. There's a character called Hai. And Hai is a rickshaw driver. He drives the bike with a cart on it. That's his job. And it's one of these movies that interweaves different stories. So you have Hai, then you have Lon. And Lon is a prostitute. And Lon is trying to work her way into high society. Hai sees Lon one day, and he falls in love with her. So Hai decides to compete in this bike racing competition, hoping to win money in order to spend time with Lon. He wins the competition, he gets the money, and his dream comes true. He gets to spend time with Lon. And so he hires her. But hear me out. When he takes her up to the hotel room, he sits down with her and he says, I just want to watch you fall asleep. And so she's shocked. Okay? So Hai, just a gentlemanly way, watches her fall asleep. She wakes up in the morning and he's gone. This selfless act of love that Hai gives Lon, just to belong, to not be used, to have a job where people aren't exploiting her. It changes her heart, and she leaves her place of work, and she never goes back to it. I think there's just something potent about that image, that visual of someone who's willing to selflessly try to care for someone, and it changes them and sets them free from how they have used work in a corrupt way. Guys, a more scandalous story than that, way more scandalous than that, is the cross of Jesus Christ. That we, who are spiritual prostitutes, who have looked to so many other things before our Maker and our Creator and indulged in spiritual adultery, he went to a cross, and he didn't just let us fall asleep in a hotel. He gave up his life and he died in our place. He took our place on the cross to set us free from selfish living so that we could look at our jobs throughout the week and say, how can I give like he gave to me? How can I love other people unconditionally? How can I serve when it's hard? How can I please a boss when it's difficult? Not because of, how they make me feel, but because I want to honor Jesus and give him glory. That is the power of the gospel. We believe the power of the gospel can transform your relationship to your job, whatever it is. Everybody in here, you're working this week. Let Jesus invade your life. That begins right now. This week begins right now. The communion meal is the beginning of your week, and it's intended to shape your week. And this is what it is. Jesus' blood was shed for you. His body was broken for you so that your blood and your body wouldn't have to be broken on the cross. You've been set free and forgiven and declared righteous in his sight. So when we come to take of this meal, we come to take it, giving him the glory, praising him and enjoying him.